Hello, thank you once again for listening to our podcast. I'm here chilling. It's a nice day. Got my homie Daniel here with us. What's up, homie?
How you doing, bro?
Chilling, chilling. And today it's a very special, different Gets Our Talk. We've never done one of this before, but we have Judy Gutierrez here with us. How you doing today, Judy?
Good afternoon. What's up?
Chilling, chilling. Very honored to have you here with us and have a conversation with us here. We wanted to go ahead and talk to you because you said, well, first of all, we're going through some elections soon, aren't we?
Correct.
And can you tell us what role you play in them?
Sure. So I am, yes, I'm Judy Gutierrez. I am a candidate for County Commissioner, Precinct 2. We are a week away from early voting. The election that I am in is scheduled for May 24th. So, yes, it's been a crazy long year on this journey to get to this election.
Congratulations, but
Thank you.
pardon my ignorance, though. I don't really know what a commissioner
And
does.
that's okay. And it's not ignorant. There's a lot of people, as we have been knocking on doors, that aren't sure what role commissioners play versus their city representatives. And just so that you'll know, I did run for office in 2020 for city representative. Did very well in the general, but fell short a couple hundred votes in the runoff. And in this election, I'm in a runoff again. And county commissioners have purview over the entire county. So we have 4 county commissioners that share a portion of the county of El Paso and a county judge that oversees the entire county. Their role is a little bit different, actually a lot different than what city representatives do. But the 3 main tasks that county commissioners have are the jails, the sheriff's department, and our county court system. Everything else is just, I guess, gravy, or all these added duties and responsibilities and oversight that throughout decades that the county commissioners have taken over. But our main function is the jails, the courts, and the SO.
So would you say it's kind of like a city council member, but for the county?
Correct. Correct.
Oh,
And city
okay.
council, there's 8, and so they represent a much smaller constituency. And yes, so like my area, to give you an idea of the the voter amount and the land amount. So I'm all the way. Precinct 2 goes all the way from North Mesa and Sunland Park, wraps around all the way south of the freeway to pretty much Lee Trevino and 375.
Oh, nice.
And then on the west side or on the northeast side, it's everything in between downtown all the way to Hondo Pass and a portion of Cielo Vista. So it's I want to say it's about 150,000 voters that we cover in that precinct.
Okay. And what inspired you to go ahead and pursue this endeavor?
What moment of insanity drove me to this? So I'm a retired city employee. I worked for the city 24 years. I worked in 3 departments while I was there. I started the first 6 years, I was a 911 employee. So did that. That's where I met a lot of law enforcement and really solidified my respect and my support for El Paso PD. And then after that, I got a promotion to City Hall, and I worked in economic development for several years. And then from there, I went to City Council, and I was chief of staff for 15 years to 4 city representatives. And it was during the last couple of years there that it became increasingly difficult to continue to work there, which is why I resigned or retired and decided to run against my former employer. So I have 24 years of public service under my belt. And then when, the election, when I didn't get elected, I decided, well, okay, I'm retired. My life isn't going to change much. And then the talk started to come out, well, you should run for county commissioner. And I met with the Sheriff's Association, who really decided to put everything behind my candidacy, and they ended up persuading me to run for office again. And it's been going very well since then.
Nice, nice. And who are your major opponents, and what sets you apart from them?
Oh, that's a great question. So, in the general or in the primary, on the original election held March 1st, there was three running for precinct 2: Carlos Soto, myself, and the incumbent David Stout. And because nobody got more than 50%, the two highest vote getters are now in a runoff, which is myself and the incumbent David Stout. And so now that's who the main guy is, and who I'm trying to focus everything on. And so what sets us apart? I can tell you from the very beginning, and I don't know much about you guys either. So I'm El Paso born and bred. I am a product of the Segundo Barrio. I was born in a little clinic in the Segundo Barrio. My parents already lived in Logan Heights, but I was born there and raised in El Paso. Mr. Stout is from Wyoming. And one of the key things affecting all of us now, and even you guys as renters, are our appraisals. And so even though I do not own property in Precinct 2, I've been a county taxpayer since 2006 when I bought my home in Canutillo. So I have been paying property taxes longer than Mr. Stout has even lived in El Paso. That's one of the key things I think sets us apart, is that you do bring, outsiders, and I call them outsiders because we talk about how often El Paso is very unique, right? Our food, our weather, our culture. We don't want to be like other cities. We want other cities to try to be like us. We want them to emulate us. And so who knows us better than somebody who has been here from the ground up, who has seen the positive changes that El Paso has made in the last 30, 40 years. I'm proud of my age. I am a cancer survivor, so I'm not. I don't shy away from telling people I'm 58 years old. And so I've been here, when we had the drive-in theaters, right? I think you guys are a little bit younger, so I'm sure you've never seen those. Yeah. So, I walked to the drive-in theater on Dyer. There's a Walmart there now. And so I've seen a lot of the positive changes from all of El Paso, from one end to the other. And 24 years of service with the city. Another complaint by my opponent is that I have zero policy experience. I beg to differ. 24 years working for the city. When you work your way up, you learn everything that you need to learn and what it takes to run city government. Mr. Stout worked for a news station for most of his professional career, and then went to work for Senator Rodriguez for a couple of years, and then he got elected to office. And so I think it's very disingenuous and very, it's a critique that he shouldn't be levying on anyone, because, dude, I've got 24 years on you. And so I think that's the other thing that sets us apart. And of course, I'm a Latina. I'm very proud to be a Latina from El Paso. And I think those are some of the key differences between myself and my opponent.
Damn, that's crazy. That's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I had another question. How do these people get into power here? Is it because of the lack of votership or lack of caring?
So there is a lot of voter apathy, and you've pretty much hit it on the head. So when you realize that as of last count, we have 494,000 and change registered voters in El Paso. I think the 2016 and 2020 election brought out a lot of voters. But when you have 10 to 15% of the voters in El Paso electing their leadership, it's a popularity contest. It's who can get their message out the best. And when you have political players in key positions that are saying, I'm endorsing you, or I'm endorsing them, whatever the case may be, a lot of it is a popularity contest. My previous opponent, Ms. Anello, is from Massachusetts. Has lived in El Paso even less time than Mr. Stout, but they got elected. And so it's not to say that, outsiders don't bring, they do bring a different vision, but we're 83% Latino. El Paso For the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, we continue to elect mayors that are white and male. We don't elect people that represent us. Congresswoman Escobar made a really good case when she said we need to elect representatives that represent us, that are reflective of our community. And when she got elected to Congress, her and the congresswoman from Houston were the first two Latina congresswomen to be elected. And so when you look at, at the smaller elections like county commissioner and city council, we keep electing people that, not even looking at the color of their skin, but the fact that they're not from El Paso, that we keep pushing aside. And I don't know what it is. I think Latinos tend to be more critical of Latinos because you're right, Daniel. How do we continue to elect people that are not reflective of us? And so I hope to change that with this election in 2 weeks. My family, I was born and raised in District 2, and it's also part of Precinct 2. I have many family members that are in the precinct as well. Public schools all the way from Burnett, Bassett to Irvin High School. I graduated from EPCC. And so I know a lot of the struggles. And then my parents were immigrants. My parents first were undocumented. They were mojados. And I grew up with that term when that term wasn't derogatory. And now, of course, you can't use the word mojados because it's very offensive, but it was something my parents used. And so, when we talked about, how it is that they came to be U.S. citizens, it was that after several years here, they got tired of looking over their backs. They got tired of worrying or wondering if they were going to get caught. So my parents went back to Mexico and stayed there and did what they needed to do, and they became legal. They became documented, and so it's I can attest to that also because again, having lived through that with my parents, and some of my siblings were naturalized because they were born in Mexico, and so again, we're a border city, so many of us, many of our parents, grandparents are immigrants. Many of them undocumented, and many of them fortunately were born here, so they didn't have to go through that whole process.
Damn, that's crazy, dude. And let me ask you something about the county commissioner. Why that precinct? Is that just the one that was available, or?
So Precinct 2, so when I moved to, I lived in, my home was in Canutillo. So I lived there, I lived in Precinct 2.
Also, Canutillo's in precinct 2.
No, it's.
Oh, okay.
So let me.
I'm ignorant as hell.
No,
Sorry.
no, no. Don't be saying that. You just, it's a learning process, right?
Right.
So I grew up and lived in District 2 my whole life. I was a renter for 20 years, paid rent for 20 years, and my husband and I just decided, we could have owned our home by now. We could have paid it off. So we just decided we were going to be homeowners. We were in a really good place. We actually saved 20 years to buy our home. And at the time we were looking, it was, the market started to go up, and it was like, wow, what we wanted, we couldn't afford in El Paso. So we started looking, and Canutillo was exploding at the time. The outlet mall wasn't there yet, and so we found almost a 15,000 square foot lot. We had our house built, and so we became homeowners in Canutillo. I love my home. I still own it. But because I worked at the city, and the position that I had was for District 2, I knew all the people. So professionally, I was there. My heart was still there. So I knew the people. I knew the area. I knew the issues. So when I decided to run for District 2 back in 2020, I actually moved into an apartment in 2019. So I kept my home. I rented it out. I have really great tenants right now. And so I moved into District 2 because that's my strength. That's what I knew. I know the area, and I knew the voters, so I did that. Well, Precinct 2, because it's much bigger, all of District 2 actually falls within the boundaries of Precinct 2. So it was an easy transition to make because you've got this big area and precinct 2 is right in the middle. So it didn't require me to move. It didn't require anything other than to live in the area that you want to represent. And so I met the qualifications with no problem. And again, having, the areas all the way from Sunland to Lee Trevino and I-10, I could pretty much live anywhere in El Paso and still pretty much almost be qualified to run for that precinct. But it just happened to be that my apartment still fell within precinct 2. Even now with the redistricting, I'm still right in the heart of it all.
Oh, okay. And let me ask you something. What is your vision? What do you hope for El Paso in the future? Like, what would you like for El Paso in, like, in the future? Like I already said.
So let me ask you, because I don't know much about you. Are you from El Paso? Are you born and bred here?
You know what? I was born in Juarez,
Okay.
and then I moved to Lubbock when I was like 5 years old, and lived there for 10 years, and then I moved back.
Go back. So it's regional, right? And yourself, Daniel?
Yeah, I've been here my whole life basically. I moved out to Austin for like 7 years and then came back.
But Austin has undergone a huge change these last couple of years. So the reason I ask you that is because, it's our heart is always here, right? Whether we're born here, whether we're born in Juarez, back in the day when we were one big city, when immigration wasn't the way it was, and where both of us, both El Paso and Juarez's, could go back and forth. So it's a little bit different now, right? Obviously, times have changed. Our political landscape has changed. But we're now in a place where our elected leadership at every level, from the very bottom, which is city council, to our state legislators and up to our congresswomen, so much has changed that as I've knocked on so many doors, so many people, even with my previous election, so many people say, I don't even know who my city rep is. Well, even more so now, so many people at the door say, I don't know who my county commissioner is. Or they'll say, I hear from you all once every 4 years when you want my vote. That's what needs to change. We talk about, or my opponent loves to champion transparency and being, there to serve your constituency. Coming around once every 4 years isn't serving your constituency. And again, if you understand our culture, if you were from here, you would understand that even the simplest of things, of phone calls, when you're not asking for their vote, when you're not asking for anything, when you're calling them to say, Mr. Cerda, you don't know me, I've never knocked on your door, what do you need? What are your issues? What complaints do you have? Instead of you having to call your elected official, we need to turn it around and we need to be out in the public more. I think that's the very base thing that we need to change in all of our leadership, because this position, let me tell you, this position pays $115,000. Who doesn't want that job? But why does that position pay that much? Because my opponent and some of his fellow county commissioners voted themselves pay raises 4 consecutive years to the tune of $52,000. That's more than a family of 4 makes in a year. So when you vote yourself those pay raises, then you better be serving your constituency 24/7, and they're not. And so that's one of the main things that I want to change, is to be out there. I'm retired. Most of the people that run for office and serve office, that's their job, that's their salary, and so it's an 8 to 5 job for them. I'm retired. And having been in the position of chief of staff to several elected officials, that's what the voters want. Voters want to be able to call you and get a result, get whatever fixed. And if you can't fix it, then they want to know why. Most people, when they say, you raise my taxes, show me something. Show me where my taxes are going. Taxes are a way of life. We understand that. To get things done, to get your street paved, to get, the parks taken care of, to have police, fire, sheriff, that's what taxes are for. But show me something for the money that I'm giving you. And a lot of, most voters feel like they're just being ignored. Our streets are atrocious, city council. We don't have enough lighting. our response times with PD and sheriff are much longer and longer now. We don't have enough equipment when it comes to, our fire trucks or our ambulances. So there's such a need out there. But that's what I want. That's what I want to change coming into office, is to say I'm going to be a people's elected official, because I've been there. I've been there when I listen, when I call, or when I meet a constituent out, and they say, look at our street, look at how bad it, look at the park, look at how dry the grass is. That's what they want to see. You don't see your elected officials out there, and that's one of the things that I will change. If elected, is that I'm going to be out there. If I'm out there knocking on your door to ask for your vote, I'm going to be out there knocking on your door to say, look, this is an issue, we fixed it. What else? What else can I do for you? Even if it's just, hi, I'm here, just wanted to say hi, and to do little things for them, just so that they'll see that you actually care, because I think that's a big difference. You can say you care, or you can be out there and show them that you care.
Right. And let me ask you something. Of course, I'm pretty sure you know that, corruption's a big deal here in El Paso. Like you said, the I remember the San Jacinto Park took like 2 years or something to
It
get
took more than
done.
that.
Well, and then when you see like a McDonald's spring up like in 2 or 3 weeks, you know, so what do you think would stop you from accepting tempting deals if you get elected? Because I mean, I'm sure they come around a lot, right?
What would stop me?
Yes.
My integrity. I mean, that's the bottom line. We got to be careful when we talk about corruption, because we've had that in the last decade. We saw the FBI raid the county commissioners' offices back in 2007. And we saw our county judge, we saw elected officials or former elected officials convicted. And so we've had that. So we got to be really careful when we say, you know, at what level we have that. I can tell you from how I was raised, because I just said this to a community meeting. I was brought up in an era where when you shook hands, that was your contract, that was your word. And nowadays, oh, they didn't sign a contract, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, and so I don't have to honor it. I think honor is something that, I'm sorry, this generation, I think, doesn't understand that. I come from a generation where your word was your word. When you gave your word, you had to deliver. And so, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that ties into some of the donations. I've been very fortunate in the runoff that the business community has come out. The reports will be out in about a week, right? I think on the 16th they're due. So the reports are going to show who's donated. I'm very proud to say that I've raised over $40,000 just in the runoff. The business community has come out. And so, the opponent, and not just my opponent, but I think a lot of opponents, when they're not getting the money right away, they throw, oh, they're bought and sold. I take great offense to that when my opponent says she's bought and sold, because you know what? He was bought and sold first, if he wants to use those words. The very same people that have donated thousands to me donated thousands to Stout first. But now they're not giving him a single penny, and for whatever reason. But I can tell you, my vision for El Paso is to continue to expand, to continue to support development, because development brings jobs at every level. When we support our businesses, given the pandemic, because a lot of people were not working during the pandemic. But my vision is to support development. We have a housing shortage now, again, because of the pandemic. So yes, some of the developers have supported me. But it doesn't mean that, oh, they gave me $1,000 donation or a $5,000 donation, that I'm going to vote in their favor and just turn a blind eye. No, absolutely not. I'm there to make the decisions that are best for the county as a whole, not just the precinct 2 people that will have been elected to serve, but it's to do what's best for El Paso as a whole. And so I'm very proud that in the general, I raised a little under 40,000, and that was over a span of 6-7 months. in this election, in the last 2.5 months, I've raised good money because it takes a lot of money to run a very effective campaign, and the support has been there. And I'm proud that a lot of the community has come out, and not just the developers. A lot of small business owners. Small business is the backbone of our economy. We have a lot of mom and pops out there, and during the pandemic, we had almost 35% of small businesses closed down because of the pandemic. So I'm going to do what I can to help all of those. I know a lot of them, they're done. Their life savings, gone forever. So I'm going to support our business community as much as possible within the letter of the law. And so no, there is no amount of money that could ever buy me or my vote, because that's not who I am, and that's not what our culture does. That it happens, yes, but I can tell you undeniably that that is not something that I would ever entertain at any level.
Okay, and let me also ask you, what do you think about our current mayor and city council?
Can I say no comment to that?
Yeah.
Can we ask you why would you say no comment to that?
You know, I'm running for county commissioner, so I would be happy to tell you what I think about our current commissioners. I think it's been tough leading during the pandemic, and I think we can say that with our electorate at every level throughout, not just throughout our country, but throughout the world. It's been tough. I have a lot of respect for Mayor Leeser. I worked with him for many years. My opponent for District 2, not even going to touch that. Yeah, I can tell you to this day, I still have constituents call me, right? Yeah. I'm often getting calls or text messages because their city representative doesn't answer their phone calls or doesn't reply to emails. And because, again, 24 years of experience, even something as simple as there's a pothole, I can't report it, they don't answer the phone, I take care of it because I know what to do. And so, what did our mothers teach us? If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. So
Right.
I'm going to leave that there. But my biggest criticism of both our county and city is that we shut down. We shut down in March of 2020. Okay, we were in unprecedented times. I get that. The mask mandate, that issue is over and done with. But we didn't go back to running our government. We didn't go back to city council. We didn't go back to commissioner's court. Yet, a lot of our elected officials were out in restaurants. A lot of our elected officials were at the ballpark watching soccer or Chihuahua games. If you can be out there at a stadium, then your butt better be in city council or commissioner's court, earning that paycheck that the taxpayers pay you for. I was so offended often when I would see them out there, but they weren't out there doing their jobs. They wouldn't go back to city hall or commissioner's court, but they sure did have the employees out there, back having to work. So that was my biggest criticism of both of them because, I would walk by and I'm like, wow, you're here, but you can't go to work, and we're paying you. Our tax dollars are paying you. So, yeah, that's my biggest criticism of them. Now they're finally, but even then, the courthouse, we still have employees working from home. I don't understand that. How do you run an effective government when, I get that during 2020 at the height of the pandemic, people working from home. This is 2022 now. Everything's open. There's no mask mandate. People are immunized. Why is our courthouse not operating at 100%?
And how would you get these officials to go back and do their job right? Is there any way to?
No, I think it's you hold them accountable at the ballot box, and not just for this, but for for raising your taxes or for not doing the job that they elected you to do. Is that with city council there is a means to fire an elected official. It's called a recall. At the county commissioners level, that they don't have that mechanism. There's different laws governing the city, it's a charter for the city, different set of rules for county. So at the city level, if you're unhappy with the mayor or with the city representative, you can initiate a recall petition. And if it's successful, then they put it on the ballot, in essence, to fire that city representative. At the county, you have your county commissioner for 4 years, and then either elect a new one in 4 years, but you're stuck with your county commissioners. There's no mechanism for that. So, and there's always room for improvement at every level. But I think that the key is that as elected officials, we recognize that to say, yeah, I've never heard an elected official say, yeah, I dropped the ball. Yeah, I got it wrong. Because I think to them, it's admitting defeat or, admitting a weakness. And, we're all human. We make mistakes. Admit it. Tell your voter, I got it wrong. But you're not ever going to hear that because, that's not within their vocabulary to say I was wrong.
Will we hear that from you?
Absolutely, because let me tell you, even now as a candidate, there are things that I've said or done that I was like, darn it, I was wrong, or I should have done this better. And again, I think that's us, right? Our culture, as Latinos, we hold each other accountable. We're like, hey, hey, bro, what's up with that? We're just we're much different with each other, right? We're very critical, but we do hold each other accountable. And it should be no different once you're an elected official. And, they're really great at holding press conferences to say, look at me, look at what I've done, look at the great things we've done. Well, say something. When you're out there and you drop the ball, hold a press conference to say, you know what, I messed up. I screwed up. And let me tell you how I'm going to fix it, and let me tell you what I'm going to do so that it doesn't happen again and to make things better. I think the voters as a whole would probably have a heart attack if an elected official did that.
Right. Something different. What the hell?
Yeah, exactly.
And I also wanted to ask, say you get elected, right? You're in office, your first day. What is your priority? What is your number one thing that you want to get started on that you think deserves attention right away?
So good. So our election is May 24th. There is no Republican opponent in my race, in the Precinct 2 race. So we don't get sworn in. Whoever, if Mr. Stout gets reelected, he'll get sworn in again to serve another 4 years. Or if I get elected, I don't get sworn in until January 1. So, because this is a primary and then the next election in November, the general, and so which is why. So if elected, I've got 7 months, 6 months, no, 7 months to kind of hang out and wait to get sworn in, to start doing anything. Now, behind the scenes, there's a lot that I can do just unofficially, is to start learning, because there is a difference between county government and city government. But governing itself doesn't change. It takes leadership, it takes really great listening skills, and it takes the ability to say, I don't know everything. And I know that I don't know everything. And I'm one of those that will sit here and tell you, I don't know everything. And so the very first thing that I'm going to do before I ever get sworn in, if elected, is I'm going to be learning. I'm going to be going to the county courthouse, meeting with department heads, meeting with staff to say, show me, teach me. Because again, at the city, I started from the bottom up. And so there's a lot of departments that I know what to do. I know what the process is. At the county, it's a little different. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is I've got 7 months to learn the job. And then, once get sworn in, I'm sure once, you become the commissioner-elect, you have access to more information. Right now, that information is very limited. It's to whatever the media puts out. So I don't have a lot of access to our budget or, some of the plans that they have. And so I can tell you, the swearing in is January 1. Obviously, that's a holiday. It won't be a holiday for me. I'll be in the office. I will have my staff already interviewed and selected so that even though it's January and a holiday, we're going to be there working, setting everything up so that we can start serving the constituents. As far as policy and everything else, I think Ascarate is going to, and let me make that clear, Ascarate.
Right.
There is not going to be a name change if I can have any, will have anything to do with that.
Well, hold on. Tell us about this name change. People are proposing that or what?
Our commissioner, our incumbent, and our county judge actually put that on the agenda a couple of months ago. I think it has backfired on them because there was an outcry from the public about changing the name.
And why do they want to change the name?
What will they change it to?
So they put it out there to say, well, let's see what the public thinks about changing Ascarate's name. And I think the outcry was, why don't you do something about Ascarate? The grass is dead. The irrigation lines are exposed everywhere. The mural of Cesar Chavez has been like that for years. You guys have done nothing with it, Mr. Stout. It's atrocious. The fencing, the walkway, it's not being maintained. There's fencing in between the walkway and the golf course. When I went and toured it in November, I took photos of everything. Okay, we're now in May, 6 months later, zero. It's gotten worse. So what are you doing? What are you doing with Ascarate? Quit messing around, trying to get your names out there, trying to get public exposure because, again, I think this was a pie in their face. I think 99% of the media comment or the media backlash was quit messing with the name. This is us. This is do something, fix Ascarate, but quit messing with the name. So that, I think that, and again, did you hear a press conference to say, oh, we're not going to do anything? No, they did a big press conference. They did a big press release to say, oh, we want public input. Well, you got the input, guys, and it was a big hell no. Well, did they say, okay, we got it wrong, sorry, we're not going to, nope, you haven't heard that. They're nothing to say, all right, we're not going to do anything. You haven't heard that. Now there's this big art project that a Mexican artist has wanted to donate at a value of $3 million. And, art is subjective, right? It's subject to interpretation. Well, it's a big square, is what most people say. Well, what is it going to cost to maintain it? So you can't say nothing is free. So you can't say it's not going to cost us anything. It may not cost us anything for the artist to build it and install it, but we've got to maintain it. And again, you brought the zero in of the public. It took some backlash yet again for Commissioner's Court to say, okay, well, let's look at this. Let's have some meetings. Let's get some input. Again, over 90% of the comments are like, we don't want it. We don't want this big sculpture in Ascarate Park. But our elected officials aren't listening to it. And to me, it was just a way of them getting their names out there. Again, you guys, if you were in touch with your community, if you were in touch with our roots, you would understand that that isn't what El Paso wants. We don't want Ascarate changed, and we don't want a $3 million sculpture that's a square because it's being donated. But I can tell you, I think that's a done deal. So I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I can tell you the very minimum I want to invest in cleaning up Ascarate, getting the mural redone. Like, I just don't understand why the maintenance has fallen apart there. We're worried about a $3 million donation. Hey, let's get our park clean. Let's get our park. Let's get it green. Last month I was out campaigning. The city parks, they're green. They're beautiful. The trees are there. You go to Ascarate and it's like, are we not paying our water bill? Because the grass is dead. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done with Ascarate Park.
Damn, I didn't even know that there was a crazy drama going on with Ascarate.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Weren't they trying to build something there? That was part of the development plan back in the years.
They're looking at, again, the city, or the county put out a bid, hundreds of thousands of dollars on what we would want at Ascarate Park. And I think what they came down to was an amphitheater. They thought an amphitheater would go well within the park. And the proposal is to, I think, seat 5,000 people. I'm ambivalent about it right now. I don't know whether I support it or not, because again, it's when you govern, it's like, okay, well, I don't like this, but it's not up to me. Let me see what the public says. Let's have these meetings. Let's get input from them. And again, this is the democracy we're in. Is the majority is what dictates, given within the cost, of course. So I don't know that I support the amphitheater. I don't know what the final cost is. I know it's in the millions. I can tell you what I have heard consistently as I've been campaigning is one, either bring Western Plainland back or bring something for the kids. We keep, the healing garden is there. It's beautiful. The county did a great job. Judge Samaniego did a good job with their vision of honoring our murdered victims in our mass shooting. So it's great. It's right in the middle. But then you have the rest of Ascarate that really needs to be brought up. So, yeah, a lot of this is politics. But Ascarate needs to. Would I love to see something like Western Playland? Yes, because we're a community that needs that type of entertainment
Right.
there back for our kids. And again, that's the number one thing, because I'm talking to voters, the voters that will open the doors and talk to me. And a lot of them are the younger parents or the grandparents who have somehow taken over guardianship of their grandkids. We have a lot of that now. They're like, your schools are closed in the summer. We have nowhere to take the kids. Everything costs money, and it's ridiculous. What's close to there? That little arcade thing at Bassett Center. It's an arm and a leg to Dave and Buster's. It's great. But if you're on a fixed income, you've got grandparents and you're taking your two grandkids, it's going to cost you $100 to take those kids out to eat and to get the cards to play the games there. And so, and that's only a couple of hours. So I would love to see something that would benefit our young kids, not our teens, but our young kids back at Ascarate.
Right. Yes. Western Playland was so much
Yeah.
nicer at the
Yeah.
Escarate.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I
it
really
was.
miss it. But I also had another question. Is there anything that county commissioner can do about the rising inflation in El Paso? I know it's like a national thing, but is there anything you can help mitigate it to help? Because I know rent's going up insane. Like we were trying to find an apartment, and it was really hard to find a cheaper one.
It is.
And
And so this is a thing that I want renters to understand, because, as elected officials, you go knocking on voters' doors, right? You have a list of, okay, these people vote the most. So you go to voters who, for the most part, are homeowners. Because what's the biggest thing affecting a homeowner is your taxes. Well, being a renter myself, the first 20 years of my adult life, I was a renter. And every time my landlord would say, we're raising your rent, even if it was 10, 15, $20. Why? Because the taxes went up. So they had to pass it on. Now we're in an era where, as you guys have said, it's tough finding an apartment. With last year's appraisals going high and then this year's going ridiculously high, you're talking anywhere from $100 to $300 a month increase in rentals. Does your SSI go up? Does your pension go up? Does your salary go up? No. So you're right. How do we combat that? And I can tell you, Daniel, I don't have a good answer for you regarding how do we fight inflation, because yes, while it is something that our feds are in charge of, everything trickles down to us. I know that they just raised our interest rates another half point. We've yet to see what that's going to do to our economy as a whole. But the inflation, I think has to do with the supply chain disruptions that we had starting from COVID. And again, we all saw what happened with our toilet paper, right? The most ridiculous thing in the world. But now we're starting to see that again. We're starting to see prices across the board increase. I can tell you where I've seen it the most hasn't been at the stores, has been at the restaurants. Wendy's, McDonald's, all the fast food that we're not supposed to eat. Like I go there now, and automatically my meals are $2 to $3 more. When did that happen? And so we're getting it hit all across. But as renters, elected officials need to understand that there is a high degree of El Pasoans, a high amount of El Pasoans that are renting, and they're socking it to you, because I can tell you, just last month, a friend of mine and her two kids were evicted for the same thing. There's no more rental assistance, right? That was one of the things that may have helped you guys. Well, the money ran out. There's no more money. So she got evicted. She had a week to move out. So I've taken her in and her 9-year-old daughter. And I said, look, my apartment isn't big enough for all of us. Stay with me for a few months, get on your feet, save some money. And she's been looking for an apartment. I've been helping her look for an apartment. There is nothing that is within her budget, nothing. And it's crazy because she's one. She's one of thousands that are going to be facing this. And as renters, even though you all don't pay taxes, the property company pays taxes, right? They're passing it on to you. And so while we're dealing with this as homeowners, we have to look at the rental properties, at the apartments too, because you guys are, and I'm not saying you, but you guys as a whole, what's going to happen when you can't afford these rents? And, when you look at like most apartment complexes are what, 200-300 units? I don't think their property taxes are going up that much that it warrants $200 per unit price increase. Like
Right.
they're making money. So, I know maintenance costs are going up, landscaping, the costs are going up across the board. But I think if anybody's getting hit even harder than the property owner, it's going to be renters. And I can tell you as a renter, I feel you. I've been there, done that. And I have to learn what I can do to help you guys because, I'm doing what I can for the one and her daughter. There's thousands of them that are going to be out there because she's also hearing we're going to be out of a place to live at the end of the month.
Right. We recently interviewed an economist. What was his name? Fullerton? What was
Tom
his-
Fullerton.
Yeah, Tom.
Fullerton, yeah.
He's cool as hell, and he told us that El Paso is, I think, one of the top 10 most poorest cities in the United States or metropolitan areas or something like that. Well, anyways, we're poor as hell here, but we have one of the most or one of the highest property taxes in the country. Is that true?
Well, if Tom Fullerton says it, I would believe.
Well, I don't know if he said the second part. I think I heard the second part from a real estate agent that we
So-
have one of the really high property or property tax or something like that.
Right. So I can tell you, I knew Mr. Fullerton when I worked in economic development at the city many years ago. That's when I met him. And so, yeah, I think we've done a good job of letting the public know that El Paso, not Texas, but El Paso, I believe we have the second highest tax rate. But you have to compare that to, and this is where the city does a really poor job of explaining it. So I don't know who number one is. I know that we're number two. But look at it in comparison to, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example because it's within my family. So my sister lives in Arlington, Virginia, East Coast. Her home is appraised at $1.1 million.
Jeez.
Okay, at $1.1 million. She owns a home on Elm Street. Her home just went up. I want to say she said it went up $50,000 in this appraisal cycle, and so now her taxes, because it's not a homestead, it's a rental, so she gets no breaks. So she's going to fight the appraisal, but she's not expecting to win. Her taxes in El Paso, she's going to be paying more for her home on Elm Street that is valued at maybe $250,000 or less, versus the taxes she's paying in Arlington for her $1.1 million home. So this is what the city doesn't get right. It's like, okay, so like her, she's got a $1 million home. She pays $2,000 in taxes. Her home on Elm Street in El Paso, $200,000 home, she's paying $5,000 in taxes. And again, that all ties into our property tax rate. But it's not just the city. Everybody goes after the city. They go after the county. Almost 50% of our taxes are the schools. I can tell you, I never had kids. I've been paying property taxes even as a renter. But they take 50% of our taxes. And so, and unless we all, EPCC is another taxing entity, there's 5 or 6, unless we all get together to say, we're going to lower our tax rate to give property owners a break, including renters, we're going to continue to pay exorbitant taxes. And what that's going to trickle down to is more homelessness. So we're going to pay for it one way or another. But that is certainly true, that our tax rate is higher. And why? Because the taxing entities like in Arlington, Virginia, have it, this tiny. So on $1 million home, this is what they're paying. But in El Paso, we're paying this much, and that, again, that's tied into the tax rate.
And where's that money going? Because I mean, we obviously the infrastructure here is pretty bad. I mean, I'm sure in Virginia it's pretty nice over there, and they have
It's gorgeous.
exactly.
It's
And then
gorgeous,
over
yeah.
here everything's falling. The only
Everything's
thing is
falling
build
apart.
fucking more freeways and more freeways.
Yeah, and even when they do build streets, it seems like they'll build it and it's not even that much better than it was before. Like
No, I can tell you that I there are times when I'm driving, I'm like, didn't we just, this road was shut down for a year and we were supposed to put drainage in, and there I am, like, my suspension getting all messed up, and we hear that all the time. And again, if we saw our quality of life increase, I think most people wouldn't complain about our taxes. But the biggest complaint, hands down, from the time I worked at the city to today, is our streets. Streets, streets, streets. And depending on where you live, that's going to be your city rep. Out in the county, if you guys think you have it bad, there's a lot of areas in the county, in Canutillo, in Vinton, in Clint, that there's still dirt roads. So I want to say be grateful that you have some paved roads, even though they're horrible. But the county is, we don't even have sidewalks in a lot of areas of the county. So there's a lot of need there. But our streets, and that's what I hear. Now, Precinct 2, and let me go, I want to go back to something you said about the freeways. Precinct 2 that I'm running for, all of that is within the city of El Paso. And so none of it is in the county. So everything regarding street lights, streets, anything like that, when people say, what can you do for me? It's like, that is under the purview of city council, but this is what I can do for you. I will guarantee you that when you have issues with your street or a street light out or anything that you need and you can't get a hold of your city rep, I will help you with it, because that's the difference, Precinct 4, Carl Robinson's, he does encompass everything from Anthony, Texas to Vinton, to Canutillo. And on the Far East, or Commissioner Holguin handles Fabens, Clint, Tornillo, all of that. So my vision, my goal is to, for both of them, is to continue to help them with funding to support whatever votes they need, so that we can bring that infrastructure. Water, there's some areas in Precinct 3 that don't even have water, that don't have outdoor plumbing. I mean, so there's a lot of need out there. But I can tell you, with Precinct 2, all of it is within the city. So a lot of the issues, I can't fix them personally, but I can help them fix whatever issues they need with their city representatives. And then going back to the freeways, I know you made a comment, because again, I want to make sure that I'm as quote unquote transparent as I can be. I support the expansion of our I-10. My opponent does not. He has his reasons, but I do support the expansion of I-10 at downtown. I've been a proponent of it since my last race.
So can I ask you something? What are they trying to do with it? Just make it thicker?
So if you haven't heard about this, there's 2 components to what's happening at the downtown area. If you drive, or if you've ever been in an area when I-10 was shut down, we had that big semi that crashed.
I was
took
there when
out-
that happened.
Took out the pillars, you saw the fire, and for 2 or 3 days, I-10 was shut down. We had traffic going throughout the neighborhoods. It took you 2 hours to get across town. It was ridiculous. So our bridges in the downtown area need to be completely redone. We're talking about millions of dollars. But, the plan from TxDOT right now is to expand I-10, and it's called the tunnel, I guess, is what they're calling it. So it's that area in downtown between Cotton, the overpass at Cotton, to Prospect, right where the ballpark is. And so part of it is they want to expand it on on both sides of the freeway. It does require taking some properties, but in addition to that, they want to put a deck park all the way from Prospect to Campbell, I believe.
What is a deck park? I don't know.
So I didn't know about a lot about it either, because when I first ran, I don't think the deck park was even talked about. But it was because I use the freeways. We are a business corridor. To get from east to west, you have to go through I-10. You have to go through downtown El Paso. Would I love to see truck traffic diverted to our Loop 375? Absolutely. I would love to. That's one thing that I would support is a law where we take our semis off of that portion of I-10 so that we leave that for cross-country vehicular traffic, not truck traffic. I would support that 100%. But what they want to do now is, and this is TxDOT, it's a state-funded project, is that they want to build a park. So they want to enclose the top and build a large park over spanning from Prospect, the bridge at where University Park is, and I think there's 4 or 5 cross bridges.
Right.
Part of it, I think they're going to remove 2 of the cross streets, but they want to build, expand the, I guess it's Missouri and then Wyoming. So they want to expand that. But to build a deck park, you have to put in these massive pillars that cost in the millions of dollars. And it's money that TxDOT wants to put in. And so there's the biggest or the most common deck park is the one at Clyde Warren. It's in Dallas. And so you have a splash pad there, kind of like San Jacinto. You have businesses that pop up. And so it's green space. There is no stadium going on there. There is nothing. It's just green space. It's a massive park that goes over the freeway. There's also one in Phoenix. I can tell you, I'm in Phoenix all the time. I didn't even know it was there.
Where the tunnel's at? By the downtown or what?
Right.
So on top they build parks.
They build a
over-
park, right?
And you don't support that? That
Oh
sounds
no,
kind of
no,
cool.
no, no. Actually,
Such a thing.
I didn't. At the first, I was like, when they asked me about the deck park, I thought, that's secondary to me. That I don't care one way or the other.
Right.
My focus is we have to expand I-10. We've got to do what we can. We've got to rebuild those bridges. And then they said, well, it's TxDOT wants to do both. They're not building the park, but they're putting in the pillars, which are massive pillars to support having a park up there. So then I said, I don't know anything about it. So what did I do? I went and met with people, and I went and learned, and I went and looked at the Clyde Warren Park in Dallas, and I thought, wow, this actually is pretty cool. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So rather than to say yes or no, it's like, let me learn about it first. Now, I can tell you because I've asked my questions, what is it going to cost to operate this park once we build it? Okay, TxDOT is going to pay for a majority of the cost. All right. What is it going to cost the taxpayers? So we're looking at $4 to $5 million in operating costs a year. So I thought, wow, that's a little high. But how do you pay for that? Well, all of the lease agreements with all the businesses that are going to be put onto this deck park. And that's pretty much what Clyde Warren and a lot of these other parks. Clyde Warren was half the size of what El Paso wants to do. It cost them $90 million to do it. 40 million was public dollars, 50 million was private. And that was through, Dallas has a lot more wealthy donors. So somebody wrote a $50 million check and said, I want that named after my kid. Okay, great. If that happens here in El Paso, more power to you. If somebody has money to write a $50 million check, you can name that park whatever you want. I don't care.
Right.
You're going to pay for it, you name it whatever you want. So I support that. But then, I started talking to some of the businesses that decided, okay, this is going to be an attraction. It's going to bring in tourists. So businesses have now quadrupled in the Dallas area. That's what we expect to happen in El Paso is that, if you build it, they will come. Well, we saw that with the ballpark. I don't know how long, you've been here, that there was a lot of controversy with the ballpark. Yes, it was taxpayer subsidized, but for the most part, between the soccer games and the Chihuahua games, they're pretty much sold out most of the time. We didn't get, I don't think, but I don't have the numbers. We didn't get all these businesses pumping up. I think a lot of what popped up was restaurants and bars, mostly bars, because again, our culture is we love our tequila shots, right? We love our beer. We love to be out there partying for, lucha libre, for Super Bowl, there's always some sports going on. So we're out there, drinking. And our sales tax on our alcohol is always one of the highest because we consume a lot of alcohol here. I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying, that's as a result of, we have a really good tax return because of our alcohol sales. So I would expect that the same thing would happen in El Paso. I think it would. I think it's going to transform. But going back to the Dallas one, it was this size. They are now looking at expanding it because the demand is there. And there's a demand to have more green space in that area. And it has now, one of the questions I was asked at a forum was, well, what do you tell the people from the Segundo Barrio? When you're going to do this? I'm like, and I was thinking about it, I was like, what do you mean? What do I tell them? Segundo Barrio has maybe one or two small parks. And I think this is going to be good because it's opening up an area to them where there was nothing there before. We're going to have this massive green space now that's going to be open to our public. Hopefully, I'm not a supporter or crazy about the trolleys, but I know it's going to increase trolley traffic so that, we'll maybe start making some money off of that. But it's going to benefit everyone in El Paso, not just the people that live in the Segundo Barrio or the people that live in Sunset Heights or Kern. It's going to benefit El Paso as a whole. I didn't realize that Clyde Warren in Dallas was the number one attraction in Dallas. That's crazy to me that people would go to that park. They've built hotels there now to support, and it's large enough that they have concerts there now. So what I envision that in El Paso as well. And so I am a supporter now of the park because, again, didn't know anything about it, but could care less about it. I care now because I went in and educated myself on it, and I am a supporter of it. But it has to happen in conjunction with the expansion of I-10.
Right.
This park, would it be would motor traffic not be allowed on it, or would it
So the
just be
way
pedestrian?
So the way it's going to be built, I've gone to look at, and I've met with the PDN people. So you've got a visual, right, from Prospect, pretty much to that last bridge, which is Campbell. And there's 5 bridges that right now we cross from one side to the other. It does plan on removing 2 of those bridges. So it would leave us with 3, but we're going to expand the access roads, and we're going to make those existing bridges a little bit wider now to be able to handle more traffic flow. And so I don't know if right now the plan is to build it all as one or if we're going to build it in 2 parts. I think a lot of that is going to depend on the funding. But you can't just close up the top of the freeway and put a park. There's a lot of road work that needs to happen to the sides. And then I can tell you it is going to be a nightmare because when you when you get rid of those bridges, you've got to divert traffic. So, there's going to be another traffic headache. But I can tell you I'm going to support that. And because when we're going from 3 to 5 or 6 lanes, and I know that, we paid again, we paid $40,000 for some people in Vermont who historically don't support freeways to tell us this isn't a good plan. Well, again, it didn't go out to bid, so they just found somebody that, in my opinion, is going to tell us what that commissioner wants to hear, which is freeways are bad. They want to divert a lot of the traffic into the neighborhoods. So that's what I'm going to tell the people from Segundo Barrio is we had that already when we were when we had the Loop 375. And if you've ever been in that area, we had by Bowie Bakery and then by Kansas Street, we had access to 375. Drivers were in the neighborhoods. Pedestrians were getting run over. There was multiple accidents. This is what you want. This is what our current commissioner wants, is to put traffic into the neighborhoods. We already have enough traffic in our neighborhoods. So I'm going to support our freeway expansion because I don't want traffic in our neighborhoods. It's already bad enough as it is. And I also don't want, like you've lived on the west side, whether you drive or whether you're in an Uber or whoever, you don't want to take an hour and a half to get from one side to the other
Yeah.
because you're taking the side streets.
And let me ask you, I noticed you said you don't really care much about the trolleys, but what do you think of light rail systems?
At a cost of over $1 million, well, I don't even know what the cost is now. I know at one time I think it was $1 million a block. We don't have El Paso doesn't have the infrastructure, doesn't have the money for that. When we say let's support public transportation, great. We have a bus system that fails. When I was running for office last time, one of the things I did was, all right, let me get on a bus. Let me see how long it takes to get from point A to point B. It was ridiculous how long it took. When you're going to school, when you're going to EPCC or UTEP, time matters. When you're trying to get from your house to a job, time matters. When you've got childcare as an issue, time matters. So, the bus system works for some, but for the majority, I think it fails. So, a light rail, would we have the support for that as far as ridership? I don't think so. Because you can pretty much get anywhere from El Paso right now, even with traffic the way it is, within 45 minutes from one end to the other. But I don't think light rail is something that El Paso is ready for, that we could support financially.
Yeah, but with all the uncertainty in terms of getting oil and just climate change, wouldn't there be a reason for it in the future, or you don't think it's far enough to care about it?
No, I think we should always care. I think we should always care and be looking. I can tell you what really has made a lot of investment right now is Union Pacific. But El Paso squandered the ability to have the station here in El Paso. So when you hear a lot about Union Pacific, they've invested millions and millions into Santa Teresa. El Paso didn't want to give them the incentives or whatever it was, but they moved to Santa Teresa, and you should see the activity there in Santa Teresa. Again, jobs, business, their economy is booming. And before, nobody ever knew, and nobody ever really paid much attention to Santa Teresa. Now it's happening. And why? Because Union Pacific had the vision, what's going to happen in the future. They carry a lot of our cargo. I don't know what the percentage is, but when our trucks don't do it, the rails do, the railways do. And it's unfortunate that, we lost out to Santa Teresa with our rail system.
So the rail yard's going to move to Santa Teresa?
They've already built everything out there. I can tell you the rail yards under Cotton, I believe that's being discussed now, or there's something where they're going to move them or they're going to altogether get rid of them. But
didn't they want to build a Central Park there too or something?
that was Mayor Caballero. So again, I was working in economic development at that time when Mayor Caballero vision was to do a Central Park there. I loved it. I mean, again, who's not going to love an idea of, okay, the rails are there. That was what was considered a brownfields at the time. And the cost back then we thought was astronomical. Well, now, this was in 03. I think he was there from 01 to 03. And then Wardy came in. And when Wardy came in, he was like, that's his vision, not mine. So that idea was scrapped. But I thought it was great vision to say, let's put a Central Park over that. But again, there was not they didn't have the foresight or the agreement between the Union Pacific and the administration at the time to do what needed to be done to transfer ownership. And so where would we be right now had we done that? Had we had a Central Park, even if you built it in pieces? I can tell you that I know that that site has been discussed as a possible stadium site for the arena. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that the public isn't aware of, but I know that area had, I don't know if it's still under consideration, but I know that was an area where they thought we could put the stadium.
And what are the possibilities of, because you go like to other cities, I think San Antonio or something, but they have like a freeway on top of another freeway. Could they do that here, or it's too small here to be able to do that?
That's an engineering question that
Oh,
I
okay.
know nothing about. I can tell you that as we get older, even when we're young, we're fearless, right? We're immortal. And so what if you drive at the very highest, and you go 50, 60 miles an hour? I can tell you now, as I'm older, it's like, oh, I've got to cross this, I've got to go on the spaghetti bowl. And it's like, oh, so I'm not as confident anymore. I mean, we can't keep building out, so we've got to build up, right? Including a lot of housing and development. We can't keep building outwards. We've got to start building up. So TxDOT redid the path, one of the ramps to Juarez. I think it was a little bit higher than what it is now. In my mind, to me, that just costs more money. But what do I know? But yeah, I mean, again, we don't want to keep taking properties. I'm not a supporter of eminent domain. And I know that part of a TxDOT plan, if they do expand, is to take some portions of commercial property. The museum, the Jewish Museum is one of the ones that they would take, but I know that they've already have talked with them about not just giving them the value of the building, but actual relocation costs. And so there's some other properties. So I know that's a big thing with. Originally, they thought, oh, we're going to take all these houses all the way to Reynolds. No, or Copia. That's not going to happen. It's just going to be from Cotton, and even then, I don't think it's at Cotton anymore. I think it's just a smaller portion. But TxDOT has already been in have most agreements signed and ready to go once they decide we're going to move through or move forward with the expansion.
And what would happen to Lincoln Park and Lincoln Center and all that? Do you know?
You know, I don't think that that's part of what's going to be
Oh, okay.
affected for that. I can tell you, I saw a lot of the murals. A lot of the murals came down when they did the new ramp to Juarez. But TxDOT worked with, I want to say Mr. Juarez was his name. They worked with the community to say, we've got to take murals. They're going to have to come down. And they worked on, it wasn't that they just came in and they did what they thought was best. It was they came in and they brought the community and they worked together to say, this is what we can work with. Lincoln Center, I know there's been talk about making that into the Hispanic, what do you call it, cultural center. But that building is, you get attached to a building. I'm excited to see what the city does with the American Hispanic Cultural Center in downtown. They took part of the library to do that. Ideally, again, it's the Lincoln Center. It's been there forever, but I just don't see anything happening with that building. I mean, if the public said we want to rehab it, we want to keep it, I would support that. But I think certain things like our children's museum, certain things like our cultural center, I think they deserve better than just an old building.
Damn, it's crazy.
There's
Well,
there's a lot, isn't there? There's a
yeah.
lot that is going on, but again, a lot of that institutional knowledge. I've been there I started working at the city in 1996. Retired in December of 2019, and I kept my eyes and ears open, and There's a lot of stuff, the chisme side, that man, I could write a book. That's the thing with chief of staff or any elected official. It's like, man, if we all got together and wrote a tell-all book, we would be rich on the stories behind the scenes there at City Hall.
Right.
Is there anything that ever like disgusted you kind of at City Hall, like that you witnessed, I guess? Like corruption or just like weird stuff?
Oh, there was just so much, and I was there when City Hall got imploded. I was one of those people that had to run because the wind shifted, and we were downwind from all of the debris, and yeah, spent so many years there at City Hall, and but you look at what we have now, and the only thing I really don't like about City Hall now is that we're so spread apart. We're in so many buildings. We're not a one stop for all. Whereas back then, anything you needed to do, you just went to one building and we were all there. Now, we're all the way on the east side. We're, in different areas of downtown. And so it's not very convenient. But I don't see the city ever building a one facility that is going to house everything. The city's almost 2 billion in debt on our debt portion, so I just don't see that happening. But yeah, some of the stuff that happened at City Hall, wow.
Yeah, but not having some kind of city hall where all the doesn't that make it harder to reach out to the representatives though?
Well, the administration is all together. The leadership is all together at City Hall. It's a much smaller building, so you have your attorneys and the city and deputy city managers and your electeds in one building, and then everybody else is spread out. At the county, at the county courthouse, you pretty much have everybody in under one roof. Again, it houses the majority of the courts, so the courthouse is a little bit different, but with the county, it's a little different. We have annexes. We have one in Vinton. We have another one on George Dieter. We have one in by Cohen. And like those, I understand that because, when you're dealing with, getting your plates, your sticker, your registration renewed, finding traffic in downtown is a pain in the ass. And so, as much as parking as they've put in, and now it's expensive, like, do you want to pay $10 to go to downtown to go pay $90 for your registration? So when you can go to Vinton, or when you live in the Northeast and you can go to Cohen and there's free parking, that's where you're going to go. And and it serves a purpose. So I support those 100%. I can tell you, because my area is so big, that if I get elected, I'm definitely going to want to have a satellite office in both areas, so that if you want to come and meet your commissioner, and you live on the west side and you don't want to come to downtown, I haven't done it yet because I think that's putting the cart before the horse, but I'm keeping my eyes open for where I can have satellite offices, and especially, in the lower valley. I think it's Prado and I-10 is the boundary cutoff. When you're way out there, you don't want to go to downtown. So I do want to look for offices that I can staff, and part of my staffing is going to be with interns. I want some of these high school kids and college kids to learn firsthand how government runs, and then and work out a way to say, work credit. They'll be interns, they're not paid, but the knowledge, the experience that they'll gain, I think is going to be monumental to what, a small salary stipend we could pay them. So I do want to do that if I get elected, on both sides, have two offices staffed and part-time, so that the public, and then on Mondays I'll be on the west side, on Thursdays I'll be on the east side, or whatever. But I've been looking at that too, to make it more accessible to the public.
Right. And Judy, before we go, because I know you're a busy person, um, you brought up the kids and the children, and you want to show them and teach them about government. What advice would you give to a young El Pasoan that is thinking about, damn, I want to make a change in El Paso and I need to join politics? And what is one way or an advice you could tell them, like, this is what you need to do to acquire this goal you have?
Okay. First thing I would say is you don't need to get into politics to make a change. I can tell you from the time I was very young, in my early 20s, I started volunteering at the Migo Kidney Foundation. I was working at Sierra at the time and helping to fundraise for renal patients who couldn't afford their medications. And so the Amigo Kidney Foundation was formed. And you know, when you help to fundraise, you're making a change. You're making a change for somebody who is no longer on dialysis but has a kidney transplant but can't afford the medications. And so for somebody who lives on a fixed income, and we're talking over 30 years ago, I'm on a pension, so I'm on a fixed income right now. So when you're faced with an illness like that, and medications are costing you in the hundreds, when you have a foundation like that that raises money and they're helping you pay for that, it changes your life. And so I'm also a member, or was a member, of the Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I mentored a young girl, Leslie, who's now 19. After 3 or 4 years, I left the program, but I continued to mentor her, her brother, her little sister, and her mom. I've made a change in their lives. I didn't need to be in politics to make a change. And so for anyone thinking of doing that, the change happens one person at a time, one act at a time. And don't be afraid and don't care what other people think or say. What matters is what's in your heart, and what matters is what you can do to help that person. And yeah, I grew up, I was very, very confident, and I didn't care what people said. Yeah, a lot of them were partying on weekends, and I was out there, you know, on my free time, helping out the community. I just didn't know the impact I was making at the time. You know, and again, hindsight is 2020. I just had no idea, and so I continued that. But that's something that my parents taught us, is that, and I thought growing up I was poor. I thought we were poor. We really weren't. It's just that perception, and it's like, you know, you help those less fortunate than yourselves. And I saw that with my parents, and you know, I'm continuing to do that to this day, is that you help when you can. And so for any young person, is don't wait, because the smallest help will have the biggest impact on somebody. You just don't know it.
Right. Well, thank you, and that's very good place to leave off.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. And
Guys, thank you.
So before we go, I'm just going to remind everybody, because I don't know when this is going to, early voting is May 16th. It's only for a week, May 16th through May 20th. So early voting starts, it's Monday through Friday. The election is May 24th.
That's next Monday, right?
That's next Monday, right? And so I hope everyone comes out and votes for Judy. I'm number 33 on the ballot, so punch 33, and hopefully next time, if you invite me, I will be your commissioner-elect.
there we go. Well, hopefully.
Right. We hope everything goes well for you.
Yeah.
And what else can people vote for on the
So there's
24th?
going to be, depending on where you live, there's 2 judges races on here. County Court at Law, number 3, I believe, and then the 327th. They're in a runoff as well. And if you live in Precinct 4, there's on both the Democrat and the Republican ticket, there's 2, depending on which way you vote. There's a race there. Carl Robinson is in a race against Mr. Coronado. And then David Adams is running against Gloria Trout for the Republican. And so whoever wins from those will then face off in November. In my race, there is no Republican opponent, so either David or I will not have an opponent in November.
Can I ask you one last
Of
question?
course.
What do you think about all these heat that the Democratic Party is receiving at the moment?
The heat.
Yeah, I heard a lot of like people just, I guess, mad at Biden.
I will go out on a limb and say this. I'm running as a Democrat.
Right.
Most of my values, I think, are Democratic leaned. Both parties leave a lot to be desired. There are good people on both sides. There are
Right.
bad people on both sides. I'm fed up. You will never see on my social media, even when Trump was quote unquote at his worst, he was my president. love him or hate him, he was my president. So was Bush, and so was every other, and Obama and every other president. You respect the position. Yes, when I'm running against Mr. Stout, and so I attack him on his votes, on his policies, on where I think he has failed. But that respect needs to be there on both sides. And they both have their strengths and their weaknesses. Is one better than the other? No. But this is the country. This is how we were founded, right?
Right.
And so when you get elected, do you say, oh, well, I'm a Democrat and you're a Democrat, so I'm going to help you, but you're a Republican, I'm not going to help you? You serve your constituency as a whole. And so you do what you can for everybody, regardless of their party, regardless of their sex, their religious preference. And I'm just fed up with this. Democrats bad, Republicans bad.
Right.
We're all one person. We're all one group. And first and foremost, we're Americans. First and foremost, we're El Pasoans,
Right.
and that's it.
Kiddo. Well, thank you, Judy, for coming through and having a conversation with us here at Quetzal Talk. We appreciate that.
That was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you at the polls.
There we go. Go out and vote, people. Bye.